Hi, I'm Raleigh Brown, and today we're going to do a lesson on arranging for fingerstyle guitar. And before we start, I'm going to try to define arranging and define fingerstyle guitar. So it used to be fingerstyle guitar was just finger picking with constant alternate bass. But that's changed, and now there's a bunch of stuff that comes under the heading of fingerstyle. And so we may do some kind of jazzy stuff, maybe a little bit of Bossa Nova, maybe a little bit of Ragtime. And we're going to look at some different models of how to go about arranging for fingerstyle guitar. And in terms of arranging, we're going to think kind of about the mathematics of it, you know, the way notes go together and how you understand the number of chords and stuff like that. And we're also going to think about the colloquialization of it, the idea that in fingerstyle guitar we're playing usually in relationship to some kind of tradition, and how if you're going to arrange you should understand a little bit about that tradition. We're going to talk about composing a little bit too, about if you're writing an instrumental or an arrangement, an accompaniment, how to go about putting it all together so that it works for you. But before we start, we are going to make sure you are in tune. And we're going to go right across the strings here. These numbers are the numbers normally used for the strings. So your thin string is the first string, and that's E, high E. The second string is the B string. The third string is the G string. The fourth string is the D string. The fifth string is the A string. And the sixth string is your low E. So I may use those numbers or those letters to define strings as we go along in the lesson, and it'll save time if you remember what those are. Okay, so let's go on and get started. So sometime back around 1969, I was sitting in the student union at Kent State University in Ohio, avoiding going to college courses and playing my guitar. And I decided I wanted to put together a fingerstyle arrangement of Sweet Georgia Brown. But I didn't know how to do it, so I figured if I can figure out the melody and then figure out a walking bass line, that would be cool. So here's what I did. First of all, I did it again in the key of C. C is a very easy key to play in. And I worked out the melody. And then I worked out the chords. It's an A chord. A D7 chord. Here's another D7. A G chord. C. And then it came back around again. And we'll go all the way through it eventually, and I'll probably even give you tablature for this one because I think I have it. And then I said, well, what if I wanted to put a bass line on that? So I made up a bass line, and I started with and then I wanted to do that in D, but I figured if I did this, it would get up too high and I wouldn't have any room for the melody in there. So I dropped it an octave. I went D, and then I took, instead of this F sharp, I came down and got this F sharp. So I went, and then just jumped up to an alternate bass. I was young. And then I did a walking bass line. And I did put this in. And so then I took that and I wrote that out in tablature and carefully figured out the rhythm of it, and I wrote the melody out unsyncopated so that I could get the fingerings down. So what I came out with was something like this. I put in this. I guess I had just learned Dallas Rag around that time. And then I had to figure out this. And then it went on from there. So once I had done that, I wrote it all down on paper and I taught myself how to play it. And then after I had figured out a way to play it all the way through, I said, okay, now I'm going to start moving some of these melody notes and get some syncopation into it. So finally I came up with after a lot of erasing and writing and erasing and writing, I came up with this version that went kind of like this. That's that index finger. And sped up, it kind of rolled nicely, and then I made that kind of the end version of, I did a couple times through where I would just play first just the melody. Just like we did with Shenandoah, just the bass. And then I did a verse where I did some fancy runs, must have done something like. So that you had a build-up, you had a kind of simple version that you start off with, and then maybe something a little fancier, and I probably was fancier when I was younger, actually. And then ending off with this walking bass version to spice it up. So there's another little kind of arranging project, is find yourself a tune that you like, and maybe something a little up-tempo like Sweet Georgia, and see if you can write some kind of neat moving bass line for it. You could go through those same kind of steps that I went through. Okay? And so we'll go on and maybe we'll take a look at a more kind of bossa nova groove on the next tune.